calling all warriors, calling all warriors. Please put your bells in the chat. Yeah. Need that energy. And we also get some purple hearts for the survivors. Shout out to the survivors. Ready or not, here I come. As soon as I finish dancing. Speaking of dancing, you members are in for a treat. So keep your membership, baby. Yeah. I'm ready to go. I don't have much patience. I see the people I need to see. I'm ready. Hopefully you are too. It's going to be a doozy. Let's go.
God is dawn. Like and subscribe. Comment some night. Love in this light. Here's God is dawn. God is dawn. God is dawn.
Welcome or welcome back to Goddess Dawn Speaks. Peace, world peace. I am Goddess Dawn, the warrior, here on this Thursday, June 30th. One day following sentencing of R. Kelly, 30 years for 30 years. Yeah. But we are here. We have more information. There's still spillage from yesterday. So we got to, keep sweeping these streets. We don't need it to pile up at the end of the week with all this R. Kelly buzz. You know what I'm saying? We want to keep the streets clean. So we're going to deal with things as they come. And I want to shout out to my very, very special subscriber for the transcript, the sentencing transcript. Yeah, we got that transcript. We're going to go through some of that transcript, baby. The sentencing day transcript is on deck. Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm not going to name you because I don't know how that's going to affect you. But yeah, thank you. I want to say hey to the warrior chat. Yeah, a bell for everybody as I go down the road. Hazel E, Miss Della, Beautiful Spirit. Ooh, Shamanic Journeys here. Chrissy Power in the building. Joel Jackson. Yep. And thanks for your Twitter responses. Get on Twitter, y'all. Twitter is crazy. Thomas Reese. What's going on? Stasia, the artist. You would come on the drop. Yeah, you need that extra love. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Aisha Stockton. Yes. Hazel E. Chi-Town OG, baby. Give you a bell. Thank you for being here, love. Yeah, I'm a fan. I've heard you. I'm with you. Marcus Exara. Yeah. James Peoples. Hey. I sure did not, James Peoples. Jasundria Pearson. Welcome back, love. Hello again. Yeah. Oh, let me throw the link out there. I'm inviting, of course, my queens to come on up and kings, anyone who wants to come up and voice your opinion, whatever it is you want to say, just keep it respectful. We get to go. I know I'm in like the sing-songy voice. I don't know. I guess when the music's too loud, that's what it does. Put me in the studio, somebody. So the link is there. You know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and play a video while we warm up, and then we're going to get into things. Let me see. Do I have the share screen? No. Miss Della. Hello, hello. Thanks for coming in. You're on mute. Oh, I guess on purpose. Play this video that you sent me, actually. Shout out to Miss Della. She owned it on it. Okay, just a little background history here, just so everybody's on the same page. I know there's people who still disagree with the conviction and the sentencing, but I think this kind of lays things out for the layman. What I noticed too in watching this, there's a security dude or a bodyguard, typically in all black with like a beanie on, and he seems to be sequential, even though this, I think this is a looped video, but I want to know who he is. So he's going to be, you know, on different sides, but just keep that in mind. All right, let's go. Oh, I hear another. Oh,
was gone.
Now you are. Now
you. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I am ready to go.
Okay. I'm going to hit play on this video, and then, you know, we will continue following that.
Later that summer. Now let's go to 1992. R. Kelly in public announcement debuted Born into the 90s. Released a year later, the album went platinum. Now let's go to 93. His album 12 Play is released and eventually sells more than 5 million copies. His single includes Sex Me and Bump and Grind, which become the longest running #1 R&B song in more than 30 years. Now we go to 1994. At the age of 27, R. Kelly marries a 15-year-old R&B singer named Aaliyah. The couple weds in a secret ceremony arranged by Kelly at a hotel in Chicago. The marriage is annulled months later because of Aaliyah's age. Now we go to September of that year. Aaliyah's debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, which Kelly produced, is certified platinum. Aaliyah tragically dies in a plane crash 7 years later, just at the young age of 22. Now let's go to 1996. R. Kelly releases his third album titled R. Kelly. A month later, he incorporates Rockland Records. His song, I Believe I Can Fly, we all remember from the Space Jam soundtrack, peaks at #2 on the Billboard Pop chart. That same year, he marries a 22-year-old Andrea Lee, a dancer from his touring group. The couple goes on to have 3 children. Now let's go to 1997. Tiffany Hawkins filed a complaint against R. Kelly alleging intentional sexual battery and sexual harassment while she was a minor. In 1998, Hawkins' lawsuit is reportedly settled for $250,000. Later in 98, Kelly won 3 Grammys for I Believe I Can Fly. And later in the year, his album R hit stores. It goes on to sell 6 million copies. In August of 2001, we find that Tracy Sampson files a lawsuit against Kelly, alleging their sex was illegal under Illinois law because he was in a position of authority over her. The case was reportedly settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Now we go to 2002, where the Chicago Sun-Times reported that it received a videotape showing that R. Kelly having sex with a minor. The paper reported Chicago police began investigating allegations about R. Kelly and the same girl 3 years earlier. At the time, the girl and her parents denied she was having sex with the singer. The same day the news breaks, Kelly performs at the opening ceremonies for the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. Now let's go to 2002, where Kelly is indicted in Chicago on child pornography charges stemming from the sex tape. He pleads not guilty and is released on a $750,000 bail. We go to 2003 now. Kelly's arrested in a Florida hotel on additional child pornography charges after investigators said that they found photos of him having sex with a girl. Charges are later dropped after the judge ruled police didn't have a warrant to search his home. 2003, Kelly has an album called Chocolate Factory and is released, selling 538,000 copies just in its first week. In September of 2005, his wife asked for an order of protection from her husband, accusing the singer of hitting her when she said she wanted a divorce. In 2006, R. Kelly's brother, Kerry Kelly, says his brother offered him $50,000 in a record deal to say that he was the person in the sex video. In 2007, Kelly released his album Double Up, which peaks at #1 on the Billboard Albums chart. Now we go to 2009. Kelly and his former wife confirmed that they are divorced after 11 years of marriage. Later in that year, Crane's Chicago business reports that a $2.9 million foreclosure is filed by J.P. Morgan Chase Bank against R. Kelly's suburban mansion. A spokesperson claimed that the singer is not having financial trouble at that time. Now let's go to 2012, where Kelly announced that he's reviving a video series called Trapped in the Closet. The project began as 5 videos for dramatic cliffhanger songs in 2007 and eventually grows to several dozen musical chapters dealing with a web of sexual deceit. Kelly teams with IFC to premiere the old new series and performs the rap opera at events such as a sing-along at Bonnaroo. There was talk of a Broadway show. Now we go to 2013, where Kelly's mansion was once valued at more than $5 million, sells for just $950,000 in a foreclosure auction. And this is where things start to really heat up for R. Kelly. BuzzFeed reports on parents' claims that R. Kelly brainwashed their daughters and was keeping them in an abusive cult. One woman said that she was with Kelly willingly. Following the BuzzFeed report, activists launched the, quote, hashtag Mute R. Kelly movement, calling her for boycotts of his music. Now we go to 2018, where Kelly's evicted from 2 Atlanta area homes over more than $31,000 owed in unpaid rent. Later in that year, Time's Up campaign joins the Mute R. Kelly social media campaign and pushes for further investigation into R. Kelly's behavior. Kelly's camp responds, "We will vigorously resist this attempted public lynching of a black man who has made extraordinary contributions to our culture." Spotify cuts R. Kelly's music from its playlist, policy on hate content and hateful conduct. Shortly after, Apple and Pandora also stopped promoting his music. Kelly's team pushes back, noting that other artists on Spotify have been accused of or convicted of crimes. Then in 2019, Lifetime airs the documentary Surviving R. Kelly, which revisited old allegations against him and brought new ones up into the spotlight. The series followed the BBC's R. Kelly, Sex, Girls, and Videotapes, released the previous year, that the alleged singer was holding women against their will. Later in 2019, Lady Gaga says she will remove the duet with Kelly from streaming services. Also that year, multiple media and brought new ones up into the spotlight. The series followed the BBC's R. Kelly, Sex, Girls, and Videotapes, released the previous year, that the alleged singer was holding women against their will. Later in 2019, Lady Gaga says she will remove the duet with Kelly from streaming services. Also that year, multiple media outlets reports that Kelly and his label, Sony subsidiary REC Records, part ways. Kelly continues to deny all the allegations against him. July 11 of 2019, we see Kelly indicted by a federal grand jury in Chicago on charges including child pornography, enticement of a minor, and obstruction of justice. A separate indictment filed in the Eastern District of New York included charges of racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, and the sexual exploitation of a child. He's arrested in Chicago once again. Later that year, Kelly is denied bail in his New York City sex abuse case after a judge agreed with prosecutors that freeing him from jail would create a risk of him fleeing or tampering with witnesses. Now we go to 2020, where Kelly pleaded not guilty in Chicago. Updated federal indictment that included child pornography charges and allegations involving a new accuser, while prosecutors say more charges alleging yet another victim were upcoming. Kelly's manager is arrested in 2020 later that year in California on charges that he threatened a shooting at a Manhattan theater 2 years ago, forcing an evacuation and the cancellation of the screening of a documentary addressing allegations that the singer had sexually abused women and girls. Later in 2021, a man is sentenced to 8 years in prison for setting fire to a car in Florida, what authorities say was an attempt to intimidate a potential witness in the sex trafficking trial. In this past June, prosecutors say R. Kelly deserves at least 25 years behind bars for abusing children. And today, with the latest update to this long saga of a timeline for R. Kelly, Kelly is sentenced to 30 years in prison for that New York case. Now, coming up in August of this year, Kelly is scheduled to stand trial in Chicago on pornography and obstruction of justice. We'll continue to follow it for you really at every step of the way right here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to play out just a little bit of Gloria Allred. And
all right, y'all. So anybody
laid it out.
What was that?
I said he laid it all out.
Absolutely. I'm echoing out of your thing again. I don't know why. So yeah, anybody confused about like why he's in prison, why he was sentenced to 30 years, why he was under a RICO? This was a little bit of an outline, touched on everything from Aaliyah, Tiffany Hawkins, all the way up to Michael Williams, the arsonist, to Chicago, that's coming up, and everything in between for the past 30 years. You didn't know that, Hazel? Oh yeah, you kind of went MIA for a bit over here, I think, but we definitely covered it. Michael Williams was sentenced to 8 years for his part in the harassment, and well, that's actually attempted murder. I think there was also shooting at the house, as well as the burnt car. So, hello, thoughts on this? Let me say,
No, let me know if I'm still echoing.
no, it's me that echoes.
Okay.
And I hear myself a little bit. I can deal with it, but I don't know if the people,
Okay.
But go ahead. No, you can. When you talk, there's no echo. So let me just make that clear.
Well, yeah, you were right. They hit from beginning to an end. It's no one is going to make all these accusations for somebody that's innocent. You're not going to pay money out to somebody if you didn't do anything. You said you was going to sue surviving R. Kelly. That never happened. You paid out numerous payments, and I mean that man didn't go through everything, but he did a hell of a job.
Be here all night if you did that.
True that.
Oh, that's all you got?
Well, on that, I
Well,
know this is our. I think we're gonna wrap R. Kelly up for
that's
the
the
New
goal.
York trial. I know you got the transcripts, which is absolutely wonderful. I read the majority of it today. It was very powerful. I can't wait. And again, you had plenty of opportunity to to stand up for yourself, and you didn't.
And that also goes for anyone else out here crying and whining about the fact that he was convicted and sentenced to 30 years. We didn't see you on the stand in the courthouse, in the courtroom. Sit your ass down, set your ass up. You
The
had your
brothers,
opportunity to
they were
speak.
in spirit. If they were there in spirit. You
Mm.
mean tell me you didn't? And so the whole, so we're gonna go through this. So during the the sentencing yesterday, that one person spoke up. You had a letter from Joy, but no one got up there and did anything for you, except for Bong Jing tearing everybody down.
There was more than a letter from Joy. There were several letters, actually. And I think only one, I think it was Diana Copeland, was someone who was on the stand, but she wasn't on the stand for him. She was on the stand for the prosecution. But she wrote a character letter.
For him?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I skipped that part. Nope, I want to be fair. And I saw that on the news. One of the reporters had said that one person actually got up there and spoke on his behalf. So let me rephrase that. Because listening to Joyce in this letter, she said, I hope this, hopefully she's able to read this letter before the sentencing. So that was it.
Mm. Well, Joycelyn's letter, I think we all agreed yesterday that it wasn't Joycelyn's voice. It wasn't her authentic response or reply or statement, I guess is the proper word. But, we've seen her before, TMZ. You see puppet shadowing in the background, someone directing her speech, look like cue cards. There's been other times. He was with her in a video. I think it was TMZ again. They're out shopping out here in LA. Everything's great,
And I recall hearing that saying that was staged.
Right. And that's what we got.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the vibe. That was the vibe of the letter. I think everyone here heard that letter. If I'm looking at the chat, well, not in a second, but everyone I think was here. I was looking for this little video I emailed to myself so I could play. Someone sent me a meme that they made. It's going to offend some people. It's going to be a little offensive. But if you're that sensitive and, you probably shouldn't be here. Miss Kim, our beautiful spirit, is with us. I think maybe in the chat, but definitely here in spirit. She's spending some time with family and whatnot. Not to put your business out there, but people be wondering. What in the heck? Okay, let me let it go. All right, so what are we talking about? So I have with me here some documents. All right, I have the transcript for the sentencing. And I also have a motion that Jennifer Bongine filed on behalf of R. Kelly. It was filed yesterday. And basically, it's a request. It's a motion in limine with requests for things that she'd like to preclude, or should I say he would like to preclude from the Illinois trial. So from looking at the document, I'm getting that she's learning from the New York trial. She doesn't want any prior bad acts unrelated to the to the witness. She doesn't want any of that introduced. She doesn't want any video evidence introduced that is outside of the charges, all of that. So I have that also here. We can go through some of that. If you missed any of all the stuff we covered, because we actually didn't finish covering some of the unsealed sentencing memos, which had reports from the forensic psychologist who met with not only R. Kelly, but his brothers, Carrie and Bruce, as well as a couple other close, I think one or two other close family members. One of the letters from for his character support came from a friend that he's had, according to this man, Keith, since 11 years old. So they've been friends since 11 years old. When I read something like that, all I get is co-defendant. I get co-defendant vibes. Like there's a lot of that throughout this trial coming up, as well as the one that just concluded with a 30-year sentence, by the way. A lot of still missing pieces and things like that. But in my opinion, nothing that would reverse that decision logically or legally, only basically compound what has already been presented, in support of the prosecution.
And I think the judge statement was powerful. Video evidence. I mean, you can't video evidence, and basically what she said was video that he recorded.
Right. Don't we have that in the transcript?
What was that?
Do we have that statement in the transcript?
Yeah.
I didn't make it to that page. You want to start with that, or there's so much.
Hold on, let me get it up.
Yeah, because you're gonna need to help me, huh? We got a lot. Anybody want to come up and help volunteer some reading? I'll email you the document. We have a couple things actually. And like we said, we're just trying to wrap up because we have other things to talk about. There's things in the transcript that have already made stories for online magazines or bloggers. Like I saw a story about the $5 million. Actually, it's on my community wall, which actually I should go to because I can show you from there the article too. But $5 million, the government basically said they found that there was $5 million funneled to R. Kelly right before his conviction. So that was last year, like September or prior. This was a conversation in the transcript, but there was also an article. That was how I first got introduced to it, was through an article on Twitter. I think Kim sent that, but I'm just like, I could have created 10 articles from this transcript art. Anyway, so there's also somebody doing a story about Joy being I guess of sorts for 30. They're begging for her to let go. And there's been a lot of that too in my comments. And of course, in the chat, we all want Joy to get up out of there. So hopefully y'all are praying for her sincerely and genuinely. Let's see. He did threaten a lawsuit against Lifetime, and so did his ex-wife. How was ex-wife going to sue Lifetime when she was in the document? Wasn't she in the? Yeah, she was, wasn't she? Yeah, I remember her being there. Yeah, that seems a little off. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna start with the transcript.
Yes, I'm trying to get on Ann now. Hold on, I think I'm almost done with Bone Jean. Hold on, move the microphone back, Miss Bone Jean. I will respect. Okay, let's see. I think she might start on page 88. Let me go down and see. There's 104 pages. Okay, let's see. 85. Actually, a little bit before that. I think it's on it might start on 84. Let me see.
Hey, Mimi.
Shit, 83. I'm trying to see which one is in that Bone Jean. If you can get down to 83, hold on.
Okay.
So 82, the court, I asked him his wish. And he didn't want to talk. Okay, so now the court. Okay. It actually starts on page 82. You let me know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. So after after R. Kelly stated that he was not going to speak up, he said, Your Honor, Mr. Kelly will not be making a statement today. She said basically because he had pending cases and she wanted to go on the record to be clear. She asked him, he said that is his wish. And so that's it. Thank you very much. And then she starts off with, this is long. Sentencing another human being is probably the most difficult thing that a judge has to do. Taking into the account that person's history and background and recognizing the general proportion that none of us is measured by. Worst thing that ever done. Nevertheless, I am obligated to consider the statutory factors that are set out by Congress in 18 U.S.C. Section 3553A. I am also required to calculate the advisory guideline range to consider the background and personal history of the defendant as well as the nature and circumstances of the offense. I will say, with respect of the calculation of the guidelines, the sentence I impose today is a sentence that will impose regardless of the guideline calculations or any enhancements that might have been disputed. I will, because the statutory factor guys in this court sentence, I will lay out what those are. The sentence must reflect the seriousness of the crime. It has to promote respect for the law. It has to be fair and just. It must act as a deterrent, not just for the particular defendant in front of me, but to anybody else who would be considered engaging in a similar conduct. It has to protect the public from the future crimes by the defendant. And it also needs to provide the defendant with any rehabilitation that he requires. I'm also mindful of the need to avoid unwarranted sentences, disparity. And I try to look at that today. I don't know what that is. Disparities, or whatever that is. Hold on.
I'm sorry. Wait, what page are you on? Because I had to do something in the email.
I'm on 83.
Okay. Oh,
disparities. Sorry,
yes.
Disparities.
Mm-hmm.
I am also mindful of the need to avoid unwarranted sentencing disparities. Sorry. I think it's safe to say, Mr. Kelly, that you are a person who has some great advantages. You have worldwide fame and celebrity and untold money. As your lawyer points out, your childhood was quite difficult. I am mindful of the suffering that you endured, including sexual abuse at a young age. It's something that I've taken into account. Perhaps some of those experiences explains your behavior. As we saw in court today, there are countless people who had difficult childhoods and those experiences, and they don't commit the crimes of which you have been convicted. But it may explain, at least in part, what led to this behavior. Even if it's a form of explanation, it's most surely is not an excuse, because after all, these are not crimes of an impulsive person, someone who can't control himself because of a sex addiction. I mean, although sex was certainly a weapon that you use, this case is not about sex. It's about violence, cruelty, define, and control. These are not isolated acts of an otherwise law-abiding person. They are not aberrations. These crimes were calculated and carefully planned and executed with regulatory for almost 25 years, using your status as a celebrity and using your enterprise. And it was an enterprise you developed with a circle of employees and entourage. You had a system in place and lured young people into your orbit, and then you took over their lives. You preyed on your ready supply of adoring fans, targeting them at your concerts and having one of your enablers to bring them to you, having your minions troll for young people at the mall and at the local McDonald's, handing out your phone numbers for opportunities to meet R. Kelly. Like all young people, as we heard today, your victims had dreams and goals. Many were just ordinary dreams of high school students. They were in a choir. They played on a varsity team. They were doing what children in high school ought to be doing. Many of them dreamed of being a singer, having success in the music business. And other people just wanted to be around a celebrity. And you took advantage of those hopes and dreams. Come to my hotel room and sorry. Come to my hotel room in addition for me. I would like to teach you some techniques. What are you willing to do for your music career? I listen to your friend. Friends sing if you can get to know you. You told these children that in order to succeed, they need to leave school. I want to say a word about the enablers, those managers, the personal assistants, the engineers, everybody else who was around you. The evidence in trial proved overwhelmingly that they were part of the structure that enabled you to do what you did, because they not only brought these young people to you, they enforced many rules. They guarded the victims when you punished them. They monitored their activities, their internet use, conversations. They stood guard when you directed them to be isolated, and they reported any violations of the rules. Okay, and they reported any violations of your rules. This is one audio tape in which two of Circle were there, backing you up while you accused a 20-year-old of stealing a watch, threatening that you would track her down and then order her to perform in one of your humiliating videotapes. Demetrius Smith and Larry Hood were in the apartment when you led a group of teenagers. Mr. Hood testified that you were Aaliyah's little, that you was Aaliyah,
They were.
testified that you were Aaliyah's little
Right.
friends into your room and had sex with them. And then there's Aaliyah herself, 12 years old when you first met her. Angela saw you performing oral sex on her when she was 13 or 14. Mr. Smith knew what you were doing, but when you thought she was pregnant and thought that you could be caught for what you've been doing, he and your other handlers helped to bribe someone to get this child a fake ID so you could marry her before you wanted to cover up what you wanted to cover up that you've been having sex with a young girl. They wanted to protect you, your career, and they helped you. And the victims didn't matter. There are countless other examples of employees who stood by or enabled your behavior. They heard you beating these victims. They knew that you were holding them in a room or on a bus. I don't know why all these people turned a blind eye. Whether they were an exception to every standard of human decency just because you were famous. Did they agree with you, as we heard at the trial, that you can do whatever you want to do because you was fancied yourself a genius who should be allowed to do whatever I want to do because I give to this world? Maybe it's just become normal to these people, normal that a man in his 40s and 50s was holding teenagers in his house, trapped on a bus, having sex with them, beating them, imposing rules. Even in the courtroom, it became normal to refer to these victims as your live-in girlfriends or female guests. There's much, much more could be said about the people who excused this and tolerated it for all these years, but these people are not before me for a sentence today. You were at the top of your organization. Oh, hold, the phone is ringing. Hold on.
I'll continue. You were at the top of this organization, and it was you who used this organization to find your victims. The evidence established that you raped them, beat them. You back?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, you want to go?
Okay. So you were at the
Line
top of
10.
your game. I can start back from this. You were at the top of your organization, and it was you who used this organization to find victims. The evidence established that you raped them, beat them. One witness said you beat her until she broke, separated them from their families, made them have sex with groups of people, filmed them, made them write letters with lies about their family, and then stole things, forced them to do unspeakable things, which you also filmed, and saddened them with incurable disease. One of the witnesses described these victims as zombies. Lewis described an instant where you Lewis described an instance where you snapped your fingers and a young, very thin, naked girl crawled out under the boxing ring. I would never forget that. And order her to perform oral sex on you and then Lewis. There's just so many examples in this trial and differences to human suffering or sheer brutality. I could not count them all. I think it's safe to say that even the most seasoned investigator will not soon forget the searing evidence about the horrors of these victims, the horrors your victims endured. Your own words and actions capture the chilling on those videotapes. Put the lie to the claim that you are the victim here. These victims were disposable to you. As one of your victims said today, no price was too high for someone else to pay for your happiness. And you left them in a wake, a trail of broken lives, and such a vulnerable time in most of their lives. They had no experience with what it means to have a loving relationship with somebody. You taught them that love is enslavement and violence and humiliation, and that they were not worthy of a simple respect or dignity. We heard today from some of the victims, and it took courage to testify about these intensely personal things and the depravity that they suffer at your hands. They still bear those scars, emotional and physical, and they probably always will. Some wonder why.
Go ahead.
Some wondered why no one stopped you. And even sadder, some still seem to blame themselves, as if a teenager were responsible for stopping a celebrity of your age, or if a teenager somehow responsible to resist your hold over them. They have no such responsibility. Despite what they endured at your hands, however, they afforded you a measure of grace and forgiveness. And perhaps you will be able to reflect on just how powerful that is and draw strength from it in the years to come. Okay, hold on, let me raise the page up. I listed at the beginning the factors that guide a court and sentences, as well as the defendant's history and characteristics. I want to speak specifically to those factors and how they apply to the analysis in this case. The seriousness of the crime: this is a case involving serial rape, sexual abuse over a long period of time, And there are few crimes more serious than that. The sentence must promote a respect for the law, and in this case, it must demonstrate the conduct that is erroneous will be punished appropriately. It must be fair and just, and it must act as a deterrent first to Robert Kelly. There were times in your life many people might have taken a second look at what you were doing. There was an instant when you were acquitted after a trial, but it seems the only thing that you took from that experience was to try to figure out ways to hem your victims in, either with the non-disclosure agreements or making humiliating tapes. And also considered that evidence of. I've also considered the evidence of the mitigation reports. You did not have to speak with the psychiatrist, but in my view, your efforts to
I said,
But in my view, your efforts to explain your conduct and some things were just and some things you were just demonstratively false. Tells me that you will not be deterred. This sentence must act as a deterrent. It also must deter other people. Any important person or celebrity, a powerful person who thinks like you, that he or she is above the law because of who that person is. Trump and and the public has to be protected. The public have to be protected from behavior like this. So taking into account of all these factors, it is my conclusion that the appropriate sentence on court one is 360 months. Count 4 and 5, 20 years on each count. Counts 2, 6, and 8, 10 years on each count. And counts 3, 7, and 9, also 20 years. All of these sentences will run concurrently. There is 5 years of supervised release. I'm going to lay out the conditions for that. They are rather long. I will do that in a minute. There's also a $100 special assessment for each 9 counts of the indictment, and then I guess that's the prosecution that come in, Your Honor, and then the court say I'm not quite done. But go ahead. Did I miss
well,
something?
hold on a second. And you're going to have to mute me while I speak because I'm echoing on your end. I just wanted to address the years that she assigned to the sentencing. And he better be on his knees because this is like 130 years. If I guess she condensed and concurrent and whatever she did to make it 30, but each count getting 20 years and 10 years and then another 20 years is not 30. I just want to make that clear, but you can continue.
Let's see where prosecutor said, Your Honor, she said, I'm not quite done, but go ahead. Did I miss something? She said, just one thing. I apologize for interpreting. The statutory maximum on racketeering is 240 months. And therefore, I think in order to impose the sentence, I think Your Honor seeks to impose, it would be 240 months on court one. Remember, I think she said what? 3 something?
Count 1?
Yeah, hold on. Let me go back up. She said 360. And that's when I guess the prosecution interrupted her and just letting her know it was 240.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me find it. Okay, let me go back. It would be 240 months on count 1, the racketeering count. And then in addition, 10 years to be served on one of the other counts to be served consecutively. And then the court consecutively, then Jesus.
I could be the other people.
All right, thank you.
It's the court. Hello?
Yes. Which one are you doing?
You're the court, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
line 6, so 7, 8. Yeah.
Consecutively, then the consecutive 10 will be on count 2. Hold on for just a minute.
Your Honor, I also may have misspoken. Let me correct.
I don't think that was anyone's submission. So at least in the terms of this analysis, I just want to make sure that that's correct.
I think that the probation department has just explained to me. You might want to mute while I read. And I think they're correct in racketeering. This penalty is 20 years unless one of the predicates is life. And they just reminded me that we do have life maximum predicates, and therefore
Yes.
I believe Your Honor is correct. I apologize.
That's okay. No. It's complicated. So let's just make sure that the record is clear that the sentence on count 1 in those circumstances is 360 months. I'm going to repeat what the other ones were just to make it clear, because it's my intention that those run concurrently. And so that would be a 20-year sentence on count 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. Concurrently, 10-year sentence on counts 2, 6, and 8. I believe that covers everything. As I said, there is a 5-year, or there are 5 years of supervisor release and $100 of special assessment on each of the 9 counts. I've also considered the parties' submissions on the questions of the fines, and I've considered the statutory factors that have to be evaluated. Now, evaluated when imposing a fine. Under these circumstances, a fine must be imposed unless the defendant has established that he can't pay the fine currently or in the future. And under these circumstances, I think the evidence demonstrates that the defendant is capable of paying the fine. And the fine I impose is $100,000. As I said, I will get into those conditions of the supervised release momentarily. There is also a question of restitution, and at this point, I think the record is incomplete on the subject of restitution. And so, what am I going to do under this under the statute? Is that statute? Under the statute,
Statute.
adjourn is
Mhm.
to date in September. I am going to have parties confer and submit a briefing schedule to me when I can get this information in. The date was determined to the restitution hearing in September, blah, 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 which is on Wednesday.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
I think that's it for that. That's a lot. The rest of that stuff is a lot. My eyes are hurting. I'm sitting in the dark anyway.
Well, you chose that.
Yeah, but I'm fine. She gave him the sentence. I'm fine. Let me scroll down. Hold on. Let me put back on
Okay.
mute.
Well, this part was kind of important to the $5 million situation. I think that comes up in this part somewhere. No? We were going to talk about that $5 million that they said he funneled right before his conviction.
Yeah, and let me try to find. I forgot what page that's on. You told me, damn it.
Oh, that's earlier. I think that's earlier on, actually, on page 28. I have a note, and the victim impacts end on page 62. Okay, so that means I hadn't even gotten to this part. So you just want to get to the actual sentence?
I believe that's it.
Well, I wanted to read the conditions that he's going to be
Okay,
required.
you go ahead and read the condition. The next condition. Okay, go ahead and read the conditions.
Okay. Let me just keep making sure I get all of it. Okay. I don't know if there's been some submissions on this from both sides, but we're not in a position to make the decision today. Now, the conditions of supervised release are laid out in the probation department's sentencing recommendations. I'm required to put those on the record, and I will do that. The defendant has to comply with any applicable state or federal sex offender registration requirement, as the probation department instructs, or the Bureau of Prisons, or any registration agency in the state where he's working or residing. The defendant has to participate in a mental health treatment program, which may include participation in a treatment for sexual disorders as approved by probation. And the defendant must contribute to the cost of those services and securing any applicable third-party payment. He has to disclose all financial information to the probation department so that they can assess his ability to pay. He will also have to participate if there's a treatment program for a sexual disorder in any polygraph examinations or testing so that they can get the necessary information for risk management and treatment. Now, just a note on that, probation specifies that Mr. Kelly is eligible for treatment in the Bureau of Prisons. And if you don't have to answer me now, but if the defendant agrees to that, make that a part of the recommendation. The defendant must not associate or have any contact with any convicted sex offenders unless it's in a therapeutic session setting with probation's permission. You must not associate with children under the age of 18 unless a responsible adult is present and he has previous approval from the probation department. That approval does not apply when there are contacts of which he doesn't know in advance, or if the children have parents or guardians, or if they're incidental contacts in a public setting. If there are any of those non-pre-approved contacts with children, it must be reported to the probation department as soon as practical, but no later than 12 hours. Whenever he begins supervision, the defendant has to provide probation with the identity and contact information of any family members and friends who have children under 18 if he expects to have routine contact with them, so that probation can contact these parents and approve routine family and social interactions. If the defendant were to live with somebody who has minor children, he has to inform them of his criminal history, and he will have to notify them that he's prohibited from associating with children under 18 without the presence of a responsible adult. The defendant has to report to the probation department any and all electronic communication services accounts that are used for user communication. This includes, but is not limited to, emails, social media, core and cloud storage accounts. He must provide an account identifier and password for each account and report the creation of any new accounts, any changes in identifiers or passwords, whether he suspended or deleted an account within 5 days of any of those actions. Failure to abide by these conditions might be grounds for revocation of his release. Also, probation must have access to search any of his accounts only when a reasonable suspicion exists that he's violated a condition of supervision and if the accounts contain evidence of this violation. Failure to submit to that kind of search might be grounds for revocation of release. There's also a search condition which requires the defendant to submit to searches of his person, property, house, vehicle, papers, computers, and any other electronic communications or data storage devices or an office. The search will be via a United States probation officer. The defendant has to warn any other occupants that the premises might be subject to searches. Failure to submit to the search may be grounds for revocation of release. An officer pursuant to this condition only when there's reasonable suspicion that the defendant has violated a condition of supervision. The area searched contain evidence of the violation. has to be conducted at a reasonable time and in a reasonable way. The next condition requires that the defendant is not to use a commuter, or probably supposed to be computer, or any other internet capable device or electronic device to access any visual depiction. And that's a photograph, film, video, picture, computer, or computer generated image or picture of sexually explicit conduct. Do not use a computer, internet capable device, or any other electronic device to view images of naked children. He may not use his computer to view sexually explicit conduct or view depictions of naked children stored in related computer media like CDs or DVDs, and he may not communicate by computer with any person or group that promotes the sexual abuse of children. The defendant must cooperate with the probation office's computer and internet management and monitoring program, and that cooperation includes, but is not limited to, identifying any computer systems, internet capable devices, or any electronic media that is capable of data storage that defendant has access to. And this will include allowing probation to examine the device and install monitoring software on the device at the defendant's expense. This software is authorized to capture, oh shit, it's starting. So the fourth is coming, so. This software is authorized to capture and analyze all data that is processed by or contained on the device, including the GEO location of the device. The probation office may access the device or the data captured on it by the monitoring software at any time with or without suspicion that the defendant has violated the conditions of supervision. It may be that the defendant is limited to possessing only one personal internet capable device so that probation can manage and monitor the device effectively. The defendant must also permit seizure and removal of computer systems, internet capable devices, and any electronic media capable of data storage for further analysis by law enforcement or the probation office based on reasonable suspicion that a violation of a condition or supervision or unlawful conduct by the defendant has or is about to occur. And of course, failure to comply, it says will result in sanctions or revocation of release. And the defendant must inform all parties that the access of monitored device that it is subject to terms of under the supervision. He can't contact the victims, any of the victims of the offenses in this case. That means he can't attempt to meet them, communicate with them by telephone or email or internet or through a third party without knowledge and permission of probation. Upon request, he must provide the probation department with full disclosure of his financial records, including commingled income, expenses, assets, and liabilities to include yearly income tax returns. With the exception of those accounts that are noted in the pre-sentence report, the defendant may not contain or open any additional individual or joint checking, savings, or other financial account for business or personal purposes without probation's approval. And he must cooperate with probation and in investigating his financial dealings and provide truthful monthly statements of income and expenses. So says he will also cooperate and sign any authorization for releases to permit probation to get access to their financial information. And they're going to have a hearing for the restitution topic. And this, this came up before, but it says if restitution is imposed, the defendant is going to have to comply with it. One thing I neglected to do was institute a payment schedule for the fine. And then they asked probation, whether they suggest, says they typically schedule it 25 cents per quarter, $25 per quarter while in custody, and 10% of gross monthly income while on supervised release. So they want to make sure they get their coins. So what else? So where's the actual? Okay, so here's the
$5 million. So hold on. This
well,
is
the $5 million
is after he get out of jail, right?
Yeah, this is the release stuff in the
this
fine.
Man gonna be 80 years old.
Probation. He is gonna be probation's bitch based on everything. They want $900 fine. The restitution hearing, that $5 million is earlier up on this, I think, page 28. And I also have an article in case rather just read the article. I can read that. But we're just basically just letting them know that aside from the restitution, the fines that are stated here, I think it's what, 30,000. It's not a lot. It's 100 some thousand. There's going to be a restitution order, and the government wants to make sure that the 5 million was accounted for when she makes that decision.
I'm on page 28. I'm trying to see if I see the 5 million
Robert
there.
Keller. Yeah, I'm bad at math. I've been telling y'all. But yeah, 160 years if she did it, she did it concurrently and not consecutively. Is that the difference? So if she did it
Yeah.
consecutively, it would have been 160 years. So that he would have been actually over Keith Rainier's sentence of 120.
So at the bottom of page, starting at the bottom of page 28, talks about the $5 million. Separately, however, defendant until August 20 was regularly. Okay, I can start. Okay, so right there on page 28, you want to start right there with the government.
Hold on, 28.
Number started number 10.
Okay. So it's the government's understanding that there are two separate intellectual property rights that stem from in the music world. You might want to mute me while I read. Thank you. There's the copyright that is from the actual words and lyrics, which is called the performing arts copyright. And then the copyright associated with the recording itself, the sound recording, which is like the masters. And in the probation report, the probation department, I think, accurately explains the copyrights associated with the sound recordings, the masters, and that's in the hands of going to Sony, and that Sony is currently retaining those royalties as it determines how to settle some outstanding default judgments against the defendant. Separately, however, the defendant until August of 2020 was regularly receiving royalties associated with that second copyright, the performing arts copyright. Those are not held up by Sony. Those were being awarded to an entity that was created by the defendant's close friend, Keith Calbert, one of the individuals who submitted a letter on the defendant's behalf. And y'all remember, this is the one I said knew him from the age of 11 years old. In August of 2001, the government understands that the defendant sold those rights to a third party for $5 million. The government's position is that the defendant has not received that money pursuant to the contract, and we provided a copy of that to the defendant, but he's entitled to receive it, and with the combination of the money that defendant will receive from Sony, as well as that $5 million, that the defendant is in a position, at least in the future, to pay a fine. Therefore, we think that the PSR should reflect the defendant's ability to pay a fine. The court? You want me to read all of it?
Where are we? Hold on.
Line 14 on page 29.
All right, Miss Bojane, what do you have to say about that, if anything? I mean, I'm not making a decision at this moment, but I hear what you have to say about it. Sure. Oh well, that's probably your boy. Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. We did receive that document yesterday, and I have not seen it before. But I will say that an officer of the court, my understanding is that any monies that he is entitled to through royalties, whatever bucket you want to put them in, or being held by Sony, and that they are liens or judgments against him that far exceeds what he is entitled to. Now, I'm happy to explore it further to ensure that I am making an accurate representation to the court. I think was a time and period, and around the time of trial where he's still receiving some royalty income, and there were judgments that they were working their way through the Illinois court. But since that period of time, my understanding has dried up almost entirely. That may be a part because of use, but also he just doesn't have access to it. I would be happy to explore it further, but I am not familiar with him being able to get $5 million. I can represent that.
Court.
Okay. Well, it's something to bear in mind. It sounds to me though it's still some additional work to be done in determining if there are any other sources of income. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think so, Your Honor. Can you mute me? Thank you. I think that I think it was the second addendum to the PSR that Sony has retained. If I added it up correctly, about $3.5 to $4.5 million in royalties. That is solely with respect to those sound recordings, the master recordings. It's my understanding that there is $7 million in outstanding default judgments against the defendant, but the defendant stands to continue to receive royalties both from the sound recordings, which flow through Sony. They go initially to Sony, and then Sony will eventually provide it to the defendant once those default judgments are satisfied. But then separate from that, there are these copyright or these performing arts royalties that are the defendant or his childhood friend, Keith Calvert, have been receiving through August of 2021, which were, several hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's completely separate from the money that was going to Sony and that Sony was retaining because it was the subject to a default judgment. And so that are the rights that he is entitled to receive $5 million. And so while it is true that there are $7 million in outstanding default judgments, most or a lot of that, I shouldn't say most of it, but a lot of that has already been retained by Sony and will be satisfied by that. And the defendant, the royalties will continue to accrue every single time that someone listens to the defendant's music. And so the objection is whether he has an ability in the future to pay a fine. And it's the government's position, given these substantial earnings, and the defendant will receive either from this $5 million judgment or from royalties coming in through Sony, that frankly, he does have the ability in the future. I would note that defense counsel throughout this case has been retained. This is not an individual who has no money, and the question is not whether he has the money today. And finally, I think it's important to note that the defendant, frankly, was not candid with the court or with the probation department about his financial status. Nowhere in there does he mention that there was this contract for $5 million to sell these rights. It simply says that, he understands that he's only getting a couple $1,000s per quarter, and that is now accurate with what the defendant continues to receive through, I think, Keith Calvert. But it completely neglected the fact that they had engaged in this contract right before this trial, before Your Honor. And so the government, we don't need to do further investigation. The question is whether he can pay, and the evidence is that he can in the future.
What else do you have to say about this? Just, Your Honor, I don't think the U.S. attorney has this completely right. Frankly, again, I'm not an entertainment lawyer. I don't understand all of this inner working of these types of negotiation. She's suggesting that there are two contracts that Sony is paying out royalties, and that there are separate sources of money. That is not my understanding, and I don't know. Again, where's the U.S. attorney is getting. I don't know again where the U.S. attorney is getting this understanding that it's separate sources of money. That is just not my understanding at all. I would say that the idea that he may be in the future receive royalty as a result of use of music is probably true. But that is very speculative at this point. Because frankly, Sony, his music isn't being played. It isn't being played. There is not. It's not as. Many sources would not play his music. So we see it in his royalties that went down dramatically at the time of the trial. So to suggest that he has some ability to pay future royalties, I think it's speculative. And I'm unsure of any information that he has entitled to $5 million. So I would, and obviously, as an officer of the court, I would be obligated to tell you if I had different understanding. I just don't. I am willing to look into it, but I don't think that the U.S. Attorney's Office has it quite right. I don't think it is your position. Wait a minute. I don't think it's your position. He is indignant, though. Is
Indigent.
he? Hold on. I
She
don't
said,
think it's your position that he is indigent, though. Is it? I
you want me
think
to do Bone Jeans so you're not going back and forth with yourself?
yes.
Okay. So Bone Jeans replies, I think it's pretty, yeah. I mean, I think he's pretty close to indigent. I mean, he doesn't have a source of money that's regular. Court.
Damn, that was quick. The only thing I will point out is at least I don't recall the precise numbers, but the submission, and I also don't remember which addendum it was or which submission it was. But it did seem to me that they were, in the hundreds or thousands of dollars for periods in the 2021. I do not know what the extent is, how likely it is to continue. I think indigency, did I say that one right, is probably a
Mhm.
stretch. But perhaps there's more either side wants to say about this. It does not sound like there's such a there is more than anybody. The government has its position, and your position is that there are no further investigation that is required. That there are sources of money, and I think council agrees. Which makes some sense. There is a possibility of continued future income. Now, now is now. Who knows what is going to happen in the future? So I think I understand everybody's position. Is there anything else you want to say about this topic? Woo,
Ju-
I'm tired of this woman. I'm done.
Just mute. Just your honor that I would like the opportunity to explore. Unfortunately, Mr. Kelly, and this has been the historical thing for him, is that he doesn't fully understand all of his financial abilities to earn what's there, the nature of the contracts. He relies on other people. He's always relied on other people to advise him, often to his detriment. So I can't really turn to him and ask him to explain it to me right this second because I don't know. I don't think he knows. And so I think just because his name is on a contract does not necessarily mean he fully understands what the nature of that contract was, or even that it may have been explained to him in very basic terms. But I mean, so I would like the opportunity to look into it to make sure that we have reliable information that we're going to depend on here. You want me to read the court?
Yes.
Okay, just hit mute. You ain't gonna burn out on me. Well, I think that as a part of the sentence, the fine has to be determined today. So I will take into account what you said and considering the appropriateness of imposing a fine. I think that's all that needs to be said about that. I just want to conclude by saying that I do accept probation pre-sentence report, which is amended by the first and second addenda and subject to those objections that I discussed and to the revisions of the guideline calculations that I discussed earlier. I think it's probably an appropriate time, unless I have forgotten something. This is probably an appropriate time to break, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to make sure there's nothing, because she be saying some little shit, Let me just read it. I do not know if you have any sense of how long each person will be. Oh, they're going to do the impact statements. I don't know if you want to read those. I do not know if you have a sense of how long each person will be. I'm really mostly just thinking of timing. My plan is that at some point to break for lunch, perhaps maybe we don't get through all of them for lunch, but my plan is to break for lunch after that and then come back and finish the proceeding. So is 10 minutes enough time to get everything together, everybody together? All right, we'll be in recess for 10 minutes and then we'll hear from those victims. So next would be the victim statements.
I don't know. Jane Doe number 9. Start on page 46.
Jane Doe number 9?
Yes.
Well, Angela's on 37. Or you wanted to
Did I
just
pass all that? Jesus. You sure Angela's on
top of 37?
but that says proceedings. Down at the bottom, the one that says impact statements.
Right up under the court on line 5.
Angela. You mean Angela, the Pied Piper?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was an impact statement. Okay.
Well, Angela's speaking, right, and isn't that one of the victims?
Yeah, but it says under proceeding. So you go ahead with
Probably
Angela then,
it's
and I'll
probably
go ahead.
because okay. You ready?
Yeah, because
Okay.
she's asking, is it okay for Angela to take her mask off now?
Right.
Okay, you can go ahead with Angela, and I'll start on the next one.
Okay. So we're reading the victim impact statements from the sentencing transcript. In case you just joined us, you're in the bushes, or you just went to go get some, to go get something to drink or get some popcorn. Just want to check the chat too before I jump into that. Thank everybody for being here. Like, share, subscribe. Yep. Spotify has music. Sirius XM Play has his records and other. He's getting money basically. Somebody came in, Renee, and said he's railroaded. All right. So let me start with Angela. The Pied Piper. You are both a magician and technique and approach, carrying with you the promises of success, family, and love to entice those you thought nobody would miss. You presented these glittery gems as if they were gold as a means to rape, beat, mistreat, and continuously repeat your deplorable acts on both male and female children alike. With every addition of a new victim, you grew in wickedness, cockiness, and diminished any form of empathy, sympathy, or self-awareness, which soon became the breeding ground for your godlike complex. You used your fame and power to groom and coach underage boys, girls for your own sexual gratification. You were doing, saying, and encouraging inexplicable things that no one should ever experience. Yet you not only did this to one person, but to many. You have created a shared foundation of trauma that centers you as both the beginning and the end. You have manipulated millions into believing that perception of you though in your voice, yet behind closed doors took ours, stripping the one thing we were sure of right beneath our feet. But today, I and so many of your victims take it back. We reclaim our names from beneath the shadows of your afflicted trauma. You brilliantly showcased it down in life. Today, all the days leading to this very moment, we had sought to be heard, acknowledged, and cared for in a way that only we could do for ourselves. We are no longer preyed upon individuals that we once were. Today, we are individuals that have grown despite our afflicted trauma. We will never be able to live a life in complete unawareness or shock of danger of predatory people like yourself. But we will be able to live again because there is no way of falling back into your personal pit of trauma willingly. Today, I bring you to the awareness that your perceived ideation of being or only acting in this deplorable manner as your self-proclaimed alter ego, the Pied Piper of R&B, could not exist without the living and deliberate breath of Robert Sylvester Kelly. I am Javante. I am Tiffany. I am Aaliyah Dana Houghton. I am a complete representation of the group second chapter. I am a representation of every woman, boy, child, man that you have ever afflicted with your deplorable, inexplicable act. I pray that God reaches your soul and touches your heart and that you will find awareness of your own deplorable behavior. And with that, I leave you with yourself, Robert Sylvester Kelly. You want to move
Your
down there?
Honor, the next witness is Addie.
And the court says, I am just going to tell you to take your time.
Addie, okay. I am Jane Doe Addie. Freedom is not free. We have to constantly be fighting for our basic human rights. Writing this impact statement was hard. I've written several drafts and revealed emotional triggers. This was extremely hard to do because of such a sensitive topic. I know there are fans of R. Kelly, Robert Kelly, that don't believe us, and they are supporters of the victims as well. I want to make my statement clear to the masses. Our society and the world, after experiencing and revealing my childhood trauma, I am finally at a place of gratitude. I am grateful to the jury, the judge, and all the ladies and gentlemen of the Justice Department. You are my guardian angels. Excuse me, I once lost hope in our justice system, but you restored my faith. I also want to give thanks and express in gratitude to my attorney, Leon Walsh. And excuse me, I also want to give thanks and gratitude to my attorney, Leon Walsh and Gruwall Law. Without their guidance, I would be totally lost. I especially wanted to thank you to the other victims and witnesses for speaking out. I feel your pain with this collection of people. Justice was served, and I hope that the world can make a stand against violent crimes and sexual abuse and continue doing so. It's a constant battle. I never thought I would experience individuals that actually cared about fighting to preserve and protect our rights. In 1994, it was a different time. There was no real awareness, no real internet, and definitely no social media. It was a time where generation was not expected to speak out, just like my mom's generation. Everything was about silence, regardless of how traumatic the experience. It was generally brushed under the rug. I am not my mom's generation. I am no longer living in that mindset. My mom supports me speaking out about my sexual assault. It is unacceptable to live in silence and is not what we should consider a social norm. It is inhumane to endure any form of domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, any form of human trafficking. It is really a modern day slavery right in plain sight. During my testimony, my mom was afraid that we would experience retaliation. It is the main reason I chose to stay anonymous, to protect my family. I can only imagine the pain and suffering the other moms victims had to go through. The shaming and the blaming. I want all the moms to know I understand and you are not to blame. The impact that social media bullying on the victims and their family. I ask for people to please stop. Imagine if it was your daughter or son. Imagine going through your life feeling guilt, despair, fear, having thoughts of suicide, feeling worthless and misunderstood. Now imagine your young daughter or son experiencing this trauma. How would you handle this? I didn't know that going to a concert in September 1994 was going to change my life forever. I was just a young teenage girl, a huge fan of Eliz, and I wanted to see her perform that day. She didn't perform. I never knew why she didn't perform that day until the day of my testimony. My sexual assault happened nearly 28 years ago. I was a minor, 17 years old. I was afraid, naive, and I didn't know how to handle the situation. I stepped forward as an adult because I wanted to stop this vicious cycle. I feel so many different emotions and guilt for not speaking out sooner. Being silent is just not right. Being silent and allowing sexual abuse to continue and being silent changes nothing. Being silent leaves you empty. Like silence. It's a very lonely place where depression and thoughts of suicide consumes you. In order to set yourself free, you have to set your mind free. In a world where people get victimized every day, it only takes one voice to start that conversation. Like everyday people, I suffer just like most of us on in our society. I suffer mostly from low self-esteem, nightmares, remorse, and shame. Suffer from within my heart with emotional breakdowns, thoughts of suicide, and self sabotaging. I don't have the confidence to speak out sooner. Excuse me, I didn't have the confidence to speak out sooner. I was seriously suffering in silence and loss. I realized that it is important to impact the lives of other victims that would not get justice every day. There are countless victims that never experience or receive justice. I am not here to judge. I am not here for money. I am definitely not here for Hollywood. I am here for you. I am here to represent your story. I am not here to represent your story that belongs to you. I am here to tell the truth. You do not need to be afraid. I was never in a relationship with Robert. In fact, during my testimony, it was my first time seeing Robert since my sexual assault many, many years ago. I am asking, I am only seeking justice and want the world to know that every person matters. I get no restitution. I have no rights due to the Florida law. One day these laws will be reformed. I only have my concert program and trauma from that event. With that, I can finally have closure. As I stand here today speaking out and never feeling ashamed again, due to the trauma of my sexual assault, I was too fearful to pursue my entertainment career after countless years of hard work. Every time there is an opportunity to move forward, my trauma held me back. I lived this way for many years. Although there are times I had good days, my fear stopped me from pursuing my dreams. Ultimately, not just affecting my life, but countless victims after me. I feel if I don't let fear consume me, other victims will not have suffered. This is what I have to endure. I only want Robert Kelly put in prison so he cannot cause any more pain and suffering to others. In 2019, after I thought I was healed and could move on, God made a statement. I could no longer live in fear. I had to make a stand. The last 4 years were rude awakenings of how my silence hurt others. I could not sleep at night knowing this. I hope that Robert Kelly cannot sleep at night knowing this is what he has done. Now it's time to focus on the determination. My ambition sorry, it's time to focus on my determination, my ambition and dreams. It's time to heal again. I believe that i believe that we as human beings overall stand for good. I still believe in unconditional love. I am no longer a minor. I am a grown woman, stronger and ready to move forward. All in all, it it's a shame that our world is not a perfect place, but it's good to know that our darkness comes to light. I don't have to live in fear anymore. I don't have to be silent. If it wasn't for the jury hearing in our stories, facts, and evidence, Robert Kelly would continue his horrific abuse. Thank you for listening and thank you for understanding. After decades, I have never thought this day would come that victims of Robert Kelly would get closure. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, we'll hear next from Jane Doe number 9, who has requested that her attorney, Gloria Allred, join her. Okay. Jane Doe number 9. My name is Lizette Martinez, and at the age of 17, while walking in Aventura Mall in Miami, Florida, with other high school girlfriends, I was approached by Robert Sylvester Kelly. During this time, all I dreamed of was becoming a singer. Singing was my life, and it's all I ever wanted to do. I was a happy 17-year-old with big dreams and an optimistic view of who I was and who I would become. At the age of 6, I was sexually abused by a family member, and by the age of 12, while babysitting, I was sexually abused by the parent of a child I was watching. By the time I was approached by Robert, I believed sexual abuse was a part of my life. I didn't understand the trauma I had been exposed to. My home life was tough. We moved around a lot, and by the time I was a senior at North Miami Beach Senior High, I had already attended 4 different high schools. Despite the chaotic life my parents exposed me to, I managed to get decent grades. I was a cheerleader on the debate team, part of the school chorus, drama club, and in an R&B group. I won a singing competition at a Florida radio station, which really gave me the feeling and drive to want to sing professionally. January 1995, everything changed forever. I never imagined my life would turn into what it did at the hands of a predator and his enablers. At first, Robert offered to mentor me and said he would help me. I believed him. I really wanted to make it, not only to live out my dreams, but to also help my struggling family. First, the abuse started with grooming me to believe that he was the only person that could really help me and the only person that cared about my well-being. I had to listen to him, and he knew that was what was best. My family and friends are jealous of me. I had to do what he said or else. At the age of 17, 2 months after meeting Rob at the mall, I was taken to the studio, the Hit Factory in North Miami, to listen to a record, You Remind Me of Something, a song he had just finished recording. I was taken by his bodyguard, Big John. We then went to a house on Chase Avenue in Miami Beach, and there was a party going on. I remember there were many young girls like myself at the party. I felt uncomfortable and extremely out of place. I was handed an alcoholic drink and told to drink it. It was the first time I had ever tasted alcohol. I was then taken to the room by Robert and a few minutes later sexually assaulted. After he was done, he got off me and left me there in shock, confused, and in tears. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what my life had just become. Life after that night quickly changed from being this bubbly teenager into a really depressed young girl who was being alienated from everyone and everything I loved, including friends and family. This is when a lifetime of depression and PTSD started for me. I stopped going to school. It, as he put it, if you want to make it, you got to listen to me. The next months were much of the same. No music mentoring, just forced sex upon me in front of people at music studios, hotels, cars while friends or his entourage sat around in the back seat. Turning 18 now gave him the opportunity to have me travel to Chicago to be his sex slave, which lasted a few years. Not only was I sexually, physically, and mentally abused, I was infected with an incurable disease. I lived with it for over 20 years. I do not know how to put a price on all I've gone through. If I could go back in time and never step into that mall, I would. Not a day goes by that I don't think about what happened to me. It doesn't go away. I just live with the trauma. In 2018, I decided to speak out about my experience because I was a mother by then, and hearing about other victims and their experiences, I no longer felt guilt and shame. I stopped blaming myself and started to understand that none of it was my fault. Robert destroyed my young adult life. He took away my innocence and set the tone for what would happen to me as an adult and the patterns that followed with being abused over and over by men. Today, I'm 45 and a mother, and I struggle with my health, mental health, and just trying to move forward from all of this. Diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety is what I live with and have lived with. Robert, you destroyed so many people's lives, and being abused doesn't give you the right. It's not an excuse. I just want to see you sit with yourself, get help, and realize what you did. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're next to window number 2.
It's been 23 years since we knew each other, and you have victimized a lot of girls since then. I feel like I should refresh your memory. I'm sorry. I feel like I should refresh your memory. It was 1999. I was a teenager, and you were a 31-year-old pedophile ready to ruin another young lady's life. During our time together, you degraded me. You humiliated me. You made me do things that broke my spirit. You were manipulative, abusive, and controlling. I literally wish that I would die because how low you made me feel as a teenager. I didn't know how to say no to R. Kelly when he told me to perform oral sex on him. Oh, sorry. When he told me to perform oral sex on him after he just played an hour of basketball and we were in a car full of his male 30 something year old friends. I did as I was told when you told me to moan and do it louder when you force your penis in and out of my mouth. Do you remember that? Before I met you, my self esteem was already delicate. But after you, my self esteem was completely decimated. I was just a teenager who felt special because someone was special to the world was interested in me. At my age, I look back and I know I was just a child. I was somebody's child, and you couldn't care less about destroying me and my future. You couldn't care less about paralyzing me with fear that one day a video of me having sex with you will see the light of day. I spent my entire 20s and 30s avoiding and mentioning of your name or any songs of yours. I always wonder why no one was doing anything to stop you and why I was having to hear your voice over the radio when millions of people saw you on that video, basically raping a 14-year-old girl. My heart breaks for that girl and her family. Anytime your name came up in the news, I would feel suffocated with fear that one day my family might see me at the absolute lowest point in my life, a time when I wanted to die because I was filled with so much shame and felt completely worthless. You stripped me of my dignity and self-respect. Pause. Um, I'm sorry, I don't want to enter. Oh, so this is what happened per the news. He was talking to his lawyer, and so she said, "I'm sorry." She stopped and said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt his conversation." Anytime your name came up in the news, I would feel suffocated with fear that one day my family might see me at the absolute lowest point in my life. At the time, I wanted to die because I was filled with so much shame and felt completely worthless. You stripped me of my dignity, my self respect, and because you, I had the sexual women. I have sexually, okay, hold on. Because of you, I have a sexually transmitted disease that I will carry with me forever. Because of you, I had to wait in lines at a free clinic trying to get medical attention for this disease because I had no money and no health care. And while I was in line getting my medicine to get rid my body of your disease, you were out there destroying other girls with no remorse. No price is too high for someone else to pay for your happiness. When I decided to testify against you, the same suffocation fear I knew when I was 17 years old and your presence came rushing back to me. I knew testifying was something that I had to do, but I really didn't want to. I didn't want to discuss and relive the trauma again. So I blocked it out and didn't think about it until I was on that stand. Somehow, finally, when I testified against you, I wasn't afraid anymore. I no longer saw you as a special person with special talents. I saw you for a criminal that you are. But after I left New York and went on with my life, I felt victimized all over again. All of those memories came rushing back to me, and I find myself sobbing uncontrollably at random times in the day, having to be consoled by my husband and hide my tears from my kids. I felt victimized by you all over again. And I don't know if I ever will be whole and healed after what you put me through. What you did has left a permanent stain on my life. I'll never be able to wash away. I'm sure you never think of that. You took pleasure in humiliating me. You enjoyed seeing me reach new lows at your command. You knew you were infected with a lifelong STD. You are an abuser. You are shameless. You are disgusting. And you are a self serving, sorry, and you are self serving. You only had 8 months with me and completely broke me. I can't imagine how this was for those girls who was with you for years. I feel sorry for you. Some horrible, horrible things must have happened to you to make you to make you have such a sick and twisted mind. I hope you go to jail for the rest of your life, because I believe that is what I believe. Hold on. I hope you go to jail for the rest of your life, because I believe that if you were ever to be released, you would only continue your atrocious behavior. You've been, you have decades of remorseless freedom in which you have made the deliberate choice to continue sexually abusing hundreds of women, taking away their freedom and their ability to move through this world as strong, empowered, and unburdened humans now. It's your turn to have your freedom taken away from you, to experience what it feels like to be robbed of your freedom, and it still won't even be an ounce of pain and suffering you brought upon all your victims you have suffered, if they had suffered at your hands. But this is the best that any of us can hope for. I like to thank the court and Judge Donnelly for this opportunity to share my story and give my statement. Please let us see this finally feel. Please let us see and finally feel some justice.
Thank you very much. Next individual to speak will be Sonia. Actually, we're going to move on to Kitty Jones. If you would like, you can remove your mask. I'll read Kitty. Kitty Jones. In 2017, rumors had been circulating on blogs about my time with Robert Kelly, and I was then approached by Rolling Stone to share my story from 2011 through 2013. It was a dark story of abuse and sexual coercion. I no longer wanted to give Robert Kelly the luxury of my silence, so I decided to not be anonymous. I didn't know the impact of my story would have at this time, but it opened the floodgates and empowered many others between 2018 and 2020 to start contacting authorities and media to finally tell their stories publicly. In that article, I shared with the world that I encountered over a 2-year period living with Robert Kelly, which included humiliating sexual abuse, physical abuse, severe weight loss due to punishments of days going without food. Before I met Robert Kelly, I was a vibrant, happy, successful radio personality and well-known socialite. I was living the life of my dreams, and then I met him, and like many others, I fell for the person who shared his hurts and betrayals of his past. Upon hearing those things, I wanted to protect him and earn his trust, and I vowed to never speak of my time with him or tell his darkest secrets. Even the things he had done to me, I planned to take to my grave. After I left his home at the end of 2013, I still had the mindset to never tell, until one day, 3 years later, my worst fears came true. I got wind that he was doing to others what he had done to me, and I panicked at the thought of someone much younger than me having to experience those things and the emotional and mental impact it would have on them years later. So I had to speak up, because my silence until then, and others who never publicly came forward, allowed this man to feel invincible. He had a reason to feel invincible. He was still performing at sold-out concerts and Grammy parties, writing songs for the biggest names in music, being praised by his peers, performing on award shows to standing ovations, and radio stations, including the one I used to work at, supported his music. The Black community would crown him the king of R&B music anytime the topic came up, and they still do. Knowing his fan base were women who looked like many of his victims, he knew the public, would never believe myself or others if we came forward. While this empowered Robert Kelly, it made me feel powerless and silenced. It became really dark, frightening, and lonely living with those memories, secrets, and left wondering, why me? It's been difficult to be in other relationships, and I have never gone back to being the social butterfly I once was. I've had therapy, counseling to cope with my time living with him, and learned how to not blame myself. But today it doesn't feel dark. The secrets are out, and the pain of my past with Robert Kelly has become my power, and I feel heard and believed. Today, my hope is that the amount of time being asked by the prosecutors is given, considering the long list of survivors and families that have been affected and lives that have been forever changed. Many of us have been waiting for this day to come. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Honor, can I have a moment? Sure. The next individual to speak will be Charles on behalf of Faith Kelly. And then
I
there's
knew I
Faith.
was gonna get stuck with this long one.
Faith, well,
Yes, hold on.
you can
Faith.
let me know if you
Good
want me to
morning.
come in. Okay.
You can do it, Father. Hold on.
Okay.
Faith. Good morning, everybody. I didn't really plan on saying anything today. I was gonna let my dad speak, but just sitting down, I was overtaken with a lot of emotion, and I just wanted to get a few things off my chest as we close this. I'm closing this chapter in my life as well as I'm starting. She said, I'm sorry, I'm closing this chapter in my life as well. I started at 19 years old telling my story. It has been a long journey. My concern is not if you're sorry. I could see that you're not. I could see that your neighbors around you. I could see their face as well as your attorney's faces as these women and victims are speaking. I hope that you get some help as well as ask God for forgiveness, as well as I've taken accountability for my mistakes at the times that I should have said no, but I said yes. I have forgiven myself. I hope you forgive yourself. But with forgiveness yourself, you have to take accountability. So I really hope that you have done that. And the people next to you, it isn't just about me, it's about the generations to come. I'm standing next to a man that I didn't know. Hold on. I'm standing next to a man that I didn't know this till after I started speaking about my story. But my dad was molested as a child from the age of 5, and he never molested me. Molested me or molested anybody else, cause or cause harm to somebody. And I look back at that age. I was seeking love from a man 3 times my age, when there was a man that literally have given me life, that's gone through the similar situations that I should have been seeking love from. So, to my parents, I want to apologize to you guys for allowing myself to forget about the way you have raised me. I'm not going to sit here and fold. I didn't want to cry, but I'm doing it. I forgive myself. It's easy to point the blame on parents, but I was one of those that my parents that didn't give me away. I lied to them. I was chasing something deeper than myself that I wasn't ready for. And I ended up being abused, humiliated. And I wanted to say, thank you, mom. Thank you, dad, for sticking by my side. It's just crazy. It's just so crazy to me. Like I said, I'm looking at somebody who has molested, abused, gone through trauma, similar trauma and that Robert has. And my dad is an outstanding man who through this time has shown me nothing but compassion and forgiveness that I didn't even want to show myself. And to the judge who make faces, who keep looking back, I hope that I hope that you never have daughters, cousins, grandchildren that have had to look at their abusers in the face and be chastised by people. It's been brutally a long process there at times that I didn't know how I was going to make it or how I could even face another day. But thankful to Gloria, Lee Maverick, my parents, and the ladies who have been on this journey as well. I thank you guys. I am so proud of you all. And everybody that has everybody has their day as well as he has this day, and he has to face what he has to say. Every day since this has started, we have heard from your supporters, from the people who harass our family. So I hope this very short day of hearing what we have to say sticks with you. Thank you to the attorneys, to the prosecutors who have worked with us. Even when we wanted to give up, days I didn't even want to talk about it. You guys, y'all kept us going a lot, a lot. And I don't think you guys realize how important it is that we made it here because we felt like nobody cared. It's been a long, long journey. So I just want to wish everybody healing from this situation on both parties. I hope if your daughters to his attorneys and that you all can explain how could you represent how could you represent and be on somebody's side that abused so many women? And I leave this to you guys.
Thank you. Okay, and this is her dad, Charles, right? Good morning to everybody. I think Faith said she wasn't going to say anything, and I was just going to talk. I just like to really, I didn't come to bash Mr. Kelly. I think he's in a very serious situation, but I do want to ask you, Mr. Kelly, to look at me from man to man, father to father. You have daughters, and just think what I might be feeling. Put yourself in my shoes. I've certainly put myself in your shoes, and I'll mention that in a minute. However, I remember watching you so many times in different videos while all of this was going on, and you didn't seem to be remorseful. You didn't seem to admit to anything. And that made me feel some kind of way as a man and as a father whose daughter has been victimized. And I'm sure you know that because in the Gayle King interview, you mentioned when she asked you what you would do and how you would feel if somebody did that to your daughter. And your response was, I would, you know what? I felt all at times as a man and as a father. However, I put myself in your shoes too. And it's so easy to hate. It's so easy to hate, but I refuse to hate. I don't wish bad on any person. We've all failed ourselves. We failed God at times. Certainly I have. And what keeps me grounded is the fact that I've messed up so many times and God was there for me. So I want to offer you some hope today. And I want to let you know that this family, we're not choosing to hate. Yeah, we're suffering. We're suffering because so many people love you. They hate us. They love your music. They hate us. They talk about my daughter. They threaten us. They say awful things about us because they love you and your music. But yet I put myself in your shoes because I realize there are people that love you. I know that you have family. You have brothers. You have uncles. You have friends. You have cousins. They don't just love you for your music. I'm sure they love you for who you are. And for your sake, I hope things work out for you. It's not for me to determine it, but if I was you, what I would want, and I said this before, I would want forgiveness. I would want mercy. I would want compassion. And in reality, that's what I wish for you. I wish the court to have mercy on you and compassion. I don't wish bad upon any man. I don't wish a life sentence on you because life is short and it is, and I believe that everybody deserves another chance and everybody can fix their wrongs and they can work together for their good if they learn from it. But before you can learn from something, you have to admit that you've done something. As I get ready to sit down, I was thinking about this wonderful God that we serve, that loves you, that loves everybody in this room. And I have no doubt that he will forgive you. But the only way he can forgive you, you have to confess that you did something. You have to admit that you did something. And so it's left up to you. There was a thief on the cross that was condemned to die. And he had been a thief all his life and he was losing in his life. But at his death, he gained eternal life. He gained eternal life because he admitted that he was a thief. He admitted that he had done wrong. He had never served God, but God forgave him because he admitted it. I'm offering you that hope today that you come to the reality that you've done something wrong to all of these victims. Certainly, these multitude of women are not all lying. And so I wish you well. I don't wish bad upon you. I know there's people who love you, care about you, and you can learn from this and you can recover from this because there is a God that loves and there's a God that forgives. And my family and I, we choose to walk in love and walk in forgiveness, even though my daughter's been victimized. God bless you. Thank you so much. The next one, and I believe final individual to speak, is Sonia.
Thank God. Good morning, Judge. I actually wasn't going to speak today because I emailed my statement. However, I just want to make sure that it's part of the record that you know, for almost 2 decades, I have lived in fear. I have tried to raise a young girl the right way, but at the same time, I had this happen to me, almost 20 years ago that I was living with. And to know that I was dealing with and trying to raise her in a good home to where she wouldn't have to go out and trust somebody and be so naive. It was really hard. It was extremely hard. You know, there was times we had our own place, but we had to pick up and leave, you know, pack a bag and go to my grandma's. And I did that because I was threatened. I was threatened. I was watched by his entourage. I was followed there. There was numerous times, I was scared for my life. I was scared for my daughter's life. I wouldn't let her come home for, you know, a certain amount of time because I was scared. I was scared that, he was going to have he was going, sorry, I got to go back to this. Um, I wouldn't let her come home for, a certain amount of time because I was scared that, he was going to have somebody that, was going to come and do something to me because of my platform that I had. And I was afraid that he thought that I was going to use that. So I just wanted to say one thing that I hope and pray to God that we all can heal. I have had almost 20 years where I haven't able to speak to anybody about it. And it has been extremely, extremely hard. But I hope and pray to God that we all heal, including Mr. Kelly. And that's really all that I wanted to say. I emailed my statement. I don't want to read it today, but I thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
No, Your Honor. Um I don't believe there's anyone else that wishes to speak. All right, we done with this.
Yeah, she takes a break anyway from there. Um, okay, and I think we read. So following that, the judge, he doesn't want to speak, and then the judge says what she has to say. 104 pages, y'all. So I think we covered the brunt of it. And anything else missed? I'm trying to think. We can just resume with another time.
So, I mean,
The chat.
I don't know what else you had on the topic, but I actually thought that those impact statements were extremely powerful. It
Yes, they
takes a
were.
lot to get up on that stand, especially when you're talking about, being abused and sexual things. Like, example, giving you a blowjob after you played an hour of basketball in front of people. I mean, how humiliating is that? I mean, I can't even imagine. And then and according to the news, of course, the people that some of the news the anchors that were there at the court, they actually said he was this unbothered. He didn't even look at the victims. You heard that Faith father asked him, "Would you look me right in the face?" Or when Faith was speaking, he was speaking to his attorney. That's why she said the little thing she said, because you had people making faces at her. People being threatened. It's terrible.
Well, her dad was attacked during the trial, wasn't he?
I think his, yeah, I don't know about her being attacked, but I know
Verbally,
that one of the bloggers
verbally attacked.
said your daughter is stupid or something. Your daughter is fucking stupid or something like that. Come on now.
She
I mean,
verbally
it don't make
attacked
sense.
him.
And her little summary of it, it was right. And I'm gonna say it again. You had nobody, your own family didn't even come there and speak for you. You know, this is gonna probably bother me for a little bit tonight because reading this shit and reading.
Go ahead. Are you there? Okay. Well, she was saying that she is upset and probably won't be able to sleep. And this stuff is pretty powerful. It's deep. I know that some of these people, like Kitty Jones, for instance, is one that has been criticized a lot throughout this ordeal. People don't believe her. And I guess I can admit that I wasn't too, invested in her either. But at the same time, like, none of us were there. And whatever is making people turn a side eye to certain ones versus others, I think at the end of the day, it's clear that he didn't have a prejudice against who he would abuse. So she could have definitely, dealt with his insanity as well. So I don't, if you weren't there, I don't think it's a good idea to just say you're lying to somebody. Yeah, I pulled up Az's Twitter. I saw y'all in the chat. Y'all ain't listening, having your sidebars. But yeah, so I pulled up her Twitter to see, because it was something was said about what she said on sentencing. So sentencing was on the 29th. Now, prior to that, the day before, she retweeted. This is a retweet. I'm young and living life to the fullest. I'm not dealing with no weird shit. But that was a retweet. On the actual day of sentencing, she said, "The devil don't play fair, but God do." And I think that's a fair statement. And I think that's a mouthful, to be honest, because there's people out here who support him who want to say, well, God is still in control, as if to say he's going to rectify this. But what they don't understand is he's in control, and he's definitely in the moment, in this present moment, reigning. So, what we're looking at right now is God's work with regard to the conviction, the sentencing, and the future hearings and trials. So with that being said, I think that's a narrative y'all might want to retire, because it really doesn't, it makes you really look really foolish, to be honest. But yeah, the devil don't play fair, but God do. I mean, who can argue with that? She has a single out, looks like. So, hey, while we're here, why don't we see what she talks? I don't know if because, Twitter is funny about music. But I guess I could show it. It's from TikTok. This is a TikTok. Got me waiting, don't be acting brand new. Got him fantasizing about what we do. Can't nobody do the things that I do. You think you know how I break loose. Yeah, get off the line. I'm seeing you. Yeah, I think you here. Okay. She's doing her thing. What is known about Jane Doe number 2 and Sonia? We went through all of that during the trial as far as who's who, what's what. Sonia, I don't have a keen memory on exactly the numbers of the Jane Does and who was who until I read. But if you want me to email you, I have transcripts if you want to read, things on your own, transcripts from the trial and that much and that stuff. So my email is in the body of this description box. I see Miss Della jetted out. Okay, I don't see a message. And I think I'm done. She's back.
All that damn time I was talking and talking, and I realized that we didn't have no damn vibe. What was the last thing you heard me say?
It was before I played Azriel's little clip.
I mean, did you hear me say that I thought that the impact statements were very powerful?
Oh yeah, the last thing
Okay.
was that you were gonna have a problem sleeping, probably.
Oh, good Lord. I said way more after that. Jesus.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, shit, I gotta try to remember. So I felt that the statements were powerful. I feel, I can feel for them. It took bravery to get up there. The threats, the harassment, everything they went through. I think if I don't know if you heard me say how the reporter was saying this, how he was just unbothered, didn't care. He felt he's guilty. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. He think it's okay. I remember Kitty, what she went through herself. I mean, he took her down till she was nothing. This girl, she quit her job and moved in with him. So, like I said, I'm proud of all the people that that actually, like that one person said, this is not back in the day where you didn't have social media and things like that. You just couldn't talk about things like that. Her grandma's generation. So I thought that all of them was powerful, and you heard why Faith got up there, because they were making faces and shit at her, the attorneys and stuff. That's why she said, I can't believe that you could defend somebody like that. Everybody had a similar story. And most of these people don't even know each other, but everybody simply got a similar story.
Exactly. That's why Bone Jean saying that this is not an enterprise situation, because all of the incidents were separate and independent of one another is bullshit. And I don't even know how she fixes her mouth to say something like that with all of the information that the judge, she's poured through.
Well,
She
I don't care. What did she say? He videotaped his own self. And when it comes to the Chicago, it's gonna still be the same way, because I'm pretty sure you're being charged for pornography. They got him. So just like she said, like Ann said in her statement before she gave his ass 30 years, she said you videotape the audio tape. And remember, we didn't read everything, but there was a portion in there where they said the tapes were so graphic, they only showed portions of it. That was enough for them. They couldn't watch it all. And then the audio of you humiliating somebody. And then one video, you making a girl walk back and forth naked. That's the one that said, I own you. And you better fuck like you never fuck when you got back upstairs. That's not how you treat somebody. You don't get into a relationship. I'm in a relationship. We're oh my God, I'm dating this movie star. I didn't get into a relationship to be abused and not eating and all that other. That's what people don't realize. Oh yeah, that's not an R&B's life. That's not a life of a rock and roll or whatever the hell they say, a superstar. You don't date a superstar to be abused.
sure don't.
And it was a house of horrors. And nobody can tell me otherwise. Everybody got their own opinion. You can go outside and cry and do everything you want. He did it. I don't want to hear enough about, oh yeah, y'all going back on all of you. I don't give a shit if it was 50 years ago. You still did it. What did that person say? You're young, you're 17. This motherfucker in his 30s or 40s messing around with little kids, going to the mall. Remember what the bus driver said? When he always, before they went to a city, because remember he was afraid to fly a plane. Whenever they went to a city, when he had to perform, he had to know what a mall was and the local McDonald's. So you got there and you get passed out business cards and hit it out right. You get there and they pass out cards to call him, and you think, oh my God, I'm special. And you ain't special. You a damn sex slave.
You you see the screen. We
What?
here with you. It says true. True, Miss Della.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
All of that. Yeah, Chicago gonna be a whole miniseries, is right. A whole soap opera. That's gonna be crazy. Um,
And I'm glad we did this journey 3 years ago. Well, I started with you 3 years ago. Has it been 3 years? We started from the beginning. And now we actually got closure now. It's actually work. Like I said, we learned so much. We speculating, but you learn so much during this damn trial. Shit, your people don't even want to talk about. People did what you people came up there you never even heard about. This coming out, they didn't even want. They wanted to bury it, but they knew that they wanted to speak up for the rest of the people. No one should have to be abused like that. And what did Ann say? What did she say? Jesus. A thin, naked girl crawled out from, she would never forget, a thin, naked girl crawled out from the boxing ring, gave him a blowjob, and then gave the other person a blowjob. You didn't say none of this wasn't true. I didn't hear, you didn't say any of this wasn't true. I just don't understand. It's his mind. Something wrong with him.
You're saying he personally didn't say it like during the trial?
Nothing. I believe what I heard was Canic, and then was focusing on how many times you gotta go to the bathroom, or how many times was focusing on that when the government was focusing on other things. You drilling to say, well, were you allowed to use the bathroom? You would try to pinpoint on that. It doesn't make a difference. And handle, like you said, you had handlers to watch them. You had handlers to monitor their phones. But if they break the rules, they get told on. Come on now. This is not a goddamn prison. That's exactly what it seems like. You gotta, they're guards watching the inmates. And then you get called, I forgot the one part, you snapped your fingers and the naked girl crawled from underneath of the boxing ring. You heard what Kitty said. That Kitty, the other one. Martinez,
Lizette,
you had to perform oral sex on him while his friends watch. And I remember her on a video one time on that Vlad show. And somebody has said R. Kelly was actually in his studio with a couple of guys in there. And a girl came in there with no shirt on and her underwear on and proceeded to give him a blowjob. And they asked her, was that her? And she said, yes, it was. So that's what I'm saying. That shit does something to you. That's fucking trauma.
yeah, you literally have like daydream nightmares on a regular basis. It's like it doesn't leave you. So thankfully, some of these survivors spoke out to him directly and were able to get these things off their chest and their heart. I know Lizette said she felt a lot lighter. So hopefully, everyone, even the ones who didn't come forward, because there's people who haven't come forward at all. Like they're just like sitting in their house, looking at all this stuff and just praying, like maybe they're thankful that this, went down on their behalf. But I think
normally when you're,
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Normally when you're at a sentence, you get up there and you show all kind of remorse. But you may not have it, but you get up there and you show all kind of remorse. You apologize. You apologize because you want to try to, oh my God, let me show them that I got remorse. Maybe that can reduce my sin. You ain't care. That's why you got what you got. You living on, you thinking that this woman is going to knock something off from an appeal. You've already been in jail 3 years and you've already been sentenced. You're putting your faith in this. So you're telling me she can care less about any of the victims. For me, it takes whatever kind of job you do, like somebody doing a doctor, I can't, really take blood. So, a lawyer, a female lawyer at that, you got to put yourself in position. You got videotapes. I maybe got a daughter or son. Would I want my kids to go through this? How the hell can you defend somebody like that? That's what Faith said. I don't see how you can defend somebody like that. It ain't nothing. It's like this is your cases that you do. Fucking Bill Cosby, Keith Lanier with his 124 years. I guess it's okay for you to put your mark on a female's vagina. It's okay. Brand them.
Mm-hmm.
But she was okay with that. That's why that motherfucker got 124 years.
Andrew, he said all Kanik was worried about was girls twerking. That was a big part of his statements and stuff. Like he was hung up on that twerking.
Hey, Andrew. Yes, he was. Like I said, how many bathroom breaks you took? He was more concentrating on that, screaming at them, thinking you fucking Perry Mason. No, you're not.
And the government digging up them funds and all that. He can't get away with nothing no more. He's really still trying. That's the thing. Not like he's learned anything. And that's what Faith's father, actually touched my heart. His forgiveness. That was kind of deep.
And that's why Bon Jean said, I don't know anything about that.
She's a liar. She's a liar. Anybody who's going to represent anyone who represents someone like him, I look at it as, they even worse, because she's probably smarter than him and she's using him as her shield to cover for him. She's lying for him, good and well. If they gave you those documents, she talking about, oh, I just got those yesterday. And you going into a sentencing, you didn't bother to look. Someone read that stuff. You know what's going on. She probably wanted to keep that $5 million so she could get it. Now, that's too bad that I can't even say it's too bad, but he had a lot of issues from the beginning with his lawyers. He's been through 1 million of them, and now he has this lady who just came in at the end, and she's a clout chaser. I mean, clearly the people she's got under her umbrella that she's been helping out, Bill Cosby, now this Keith Raniere guy who got 120 years. She's supposed to be handling his appeal. How you doing that? And working on R. Kelly's Illinois federal case, and as well as his appeal stuff for New York.
Man ain't getting out of jail.
What are you, a superwoman? Like, I'm trying to figure out why are you exerting yourself to this extent for this man? For what?
Like you said, maybe clout chasing. And didn't Ann say the same thing that we said a long time ago? You were acquitted. And instead of you saying, thank my God, lick the ground, thank you, Jesus, you went right back out there again to try to do it a different way, to make sure you didn't get caught, like non-disclosure letters and shit. That you get motherfuckers to write letters and shit, and you got caught. Perfect. That perfect little video of What was the video? What did he say? What was the thing you played like yesterday? You injected yourself in the music. They should have got you. They should have got me 30 years ago. Because I want to thank all these strong motherfuckers out here. Because of you, I'm able to do what I'm doing. Where the motherfuckers at now? That one person came up and spoke in your behalf. They probably laughing at you. You treated women like they were dirt, like they were nothing, like they're somebody you can care less about any of them. You can care less about their pain. You just move on to the next person. And if his mindset is the way it is, you heard, but it is what it is. And he knows Chicago is going to be worse. He knows that they got videotape. He knows that. What Bon Jean gonna do about that? She gonna say it's not real?
Maybe.
Okay, well, we know it's real. And you heard what one of them said about that tape with Rashonda on there. How she saw him with that foot. Remember, I saw the tape.
Yeah, Illinois. Yeah, I mean, people want to say, "Oh, that's old, double jeopardy, this and that."
I don't give you say anything. I can give a shit less.
So for Illinois, for the federal trial come up in Illinois, people need to understand that the whole trial is based on the Illinois trial being corrupted. It's obstruction. It's all the stuff. All the people involved, in my opinion, in that 2008 trial that's still alive need to be held accountable. I don't care what type of role or title, judge, prosecutor, defense, everybody. They all need to be pulled in, not just these victims or survivors that are going to have to relive this in this trial, and their families also.
And why do you think she took the time to mention? And R. Kelly is 55 years old with diabetes. And
because she said he's not going to make it. her point is to say that he's not going to make it to 80, so he should get a lighter sentence because he's not going to be alive. She literally said that.
No, okay.
I mean, you want to
And
know.
told him at first when he was pre-diabetic. Remember? You like to play basketball, you do something for your health or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, I'm glad this one is closed.
Look, he's unhealthy, and he had warnings by doctors, and the judge said go work out and eat different and better and whatever. Stacy's asking where she could see the tapes. Girl, I've never seen any of the tapes. So, and as far as I know, one is still available out there. The one that's the infamous P tape or whatever.
So Stacy,
I wouldn't want to see it.
Back in the day, Stacy, they were selling that tape. They made so many copies of that tape. They were selling it for $10 at the flea market.
And keep in mind, it's child pornography.
Yes, I couldn't even get through it. That's how bad it was. I actually felt ashamed. Like, oh my God. Should I even be watching this in my little innocent self? It was terrible. And it was him. And it was her. So again, like I said, they said that for the videotapes that they got, they were so graphic. Remember, so one of them statements, so we didn't read the whole statement, the whole thing, because it's too much. But the prosecutor side, when they was giving saying why he needed to get the 25 or plus, video of one of them rubbing feces on their face. That's in there too. I read that earlier today. And like I said, it's so graphic they had to take pieces out to show to the jury. Come on now. For the judge to even think that even ask if the jury would like therapy when this was over, because they knew it was coming. And you just sitting there quiet. I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any of that. I don't got no remorse. So I don't know.
I think Aaliyah did want her business out there at this point. I honestly do believe her spirit is like charging one of the lead charges in this movement, to be very honest. I think as a woman today, I don't see her cowering or hiding from this, because I believe this stuff would have been coming out anyway, whether she was here or not. And I feel like I don't see her ignoring this, even though she was obviously very quiet and mysterious, I guess you could say. When she was here, she was very young,
and to be subject to all of that. And we would never know the impact of Barry Hankerson and all of that. We would never know any of that. You married her. Oh my God, you lied on a marriage certificate. Now you married her now because they proved it. I mean, you can't do no more. They had goddamn the minister there. I mean, you lied and said you never married her. I mean, you had Demetrius Smith to say, well, yeah, we paid somebody to forge your marriage. I mean, how much more can you say?
And by that,
I don't know. This a pathological lie. I don't know.
And by Demetrius saying that, Demetrius then got the blame for being the whole culprit behind it. You see how that works?
It doesn't make a difference. He still did it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is him coming out
on the prosecution side. They said that you like you said, you dated that young girl, and you raped her, is what they said. You raped her at an early age and got her pregnant, and then you got scared, and so you wanted to hurry up and get her marriage real quick because you knew you was gonna be in trouble.
So I guess what I'm just saying is there's people, who still don't give him the blame, they don't properly blame R. Kelly. So what I'm saying is, being that Demetrius took the stand and admitted these things happened, the bribery and all, he then got the spotlight and the blame to say, well, R. Kelly didn't know he did that. He did that on his own. He was behind that. So that's just to say that the pattern for the naysayers against the survivors and the supporters of R. Kelly they still shift blame. They continue to do so, no matter what is said. So I guess us reading this for me is important because it's literally out of these people's mouths, and you can't dispute the facts. It's literally court transcripts. I want to also bring up before we get off of here that Bonjean, on behalf of R. Kelly, yesterday filed a motion in limine to bar the following bad act evidence. And this is for the Illinois federal trial that's set to start on August 15th, like a month and a half from now. So she's asking that the defendant, is asking to bar the following bad act evidence in the trial. Evidence related to defendant's marriage and alleged sexual relationship with Aaliyah. That's the first thing on the list. And what she's saying is that the defendant is not charged with any conduct related to his relationship with Aaliyah, who is deceased, including evidence that the defendant married Aaliyah in 1994 when she was underage. Instruction of such evidence serves no legitimate non-propensity purpose. Furthermore, any probative value of such evidence is substantially outweighed by its prejudicial effect. Accordingly, defendant moves to preclude testimony of any evidence related to this purported relationship and or marriage to Aaliyah. So she wants Aaliyah out of the picture when it comes to this upcoming trial. She only want her brought up. She also doesn't want any uncharged allegations of women who claim the defendant abused or mistreated them. Like in the previous trial in New York, they had the bad acts. The prior bad acts were allowed by the judge. And that let us see the John Does and some of the other victim witnesses that we wouldn't have been aware of otherwise. She is like, none of that is, I don't want none of that for Illinois. No people that aren't charged. I don't want them allowed to speak in this trial. I don't want any evidence. So she said about the women, the voluminous discovery in this case reveals that scores of women have accused defendant of engaging in varying forms of mistreatment toward them. The government has not provided notice of any intent to offer such additional evidence. Defendant moves to bar any additional uncharged allegations of misconduct. If the government tends to introduce uncharged act evidence, defendant requests that the government immediately disclose that what evidence it seeks to introduce for what purpose. So she wants basically, if you got anything outside of what's being charged that you plan on bringing to the table, we need to see that right now. We want to know what it is and what it's for. And then she also says evidence that defendant impregnated any accusers and or facilitated their abortions. She wants that struck. She does not want this coming up in the trial, any evidence around it. And to that, she says the discovery records. So this is the discovery records for the Illinois trial reflects that at least 2 individuals purportedly were impregnated by the defendant or possibly impregnated by the defendant, and that the defendant facilitated their abortions. The statements by these accusers are imprecise, and there is no corroboration that these claims are true. Regardless of such evidence, serves no legitimate evidentiary purpose and would be offered for no other purpose than to breed contempt for the defendant. Should the government intend to offer such evidence, defendant moves to bar it. So she don't want none of these abortions, and she don't want none of these brought up. And she's basically like, you know, you're going to make him look bad. And then they're going to hate him before they even hear his side of the story.
Well, they're going to bring it up anyway. She don't take it. That man going to reject that.
The judge.
Yep.
She also wants evidence that defendant infected any sexual partners with herpes stricken from the trial. She said that several accusers, including minor one in Illinois, which is Landfair, alleged that defendant infected her with a sexually transmitted disease, namely herpes. Again, this evidence serves no legitimate non-propensity purpose and would be offered solely to inflame their passions of the jury. Defendant contends that such evidence should be barred and having no relevant purpose, or in the alternative, the probative value of such evidence is substantially outweighed by its prejudicial effect. So she's like, it's going to make them prejudiced against him. It's not fair. Thank you.
The prosecutor is not going to allow that.
Well, the judge has to decide, not the prosecution. I mean, if the judge says, okay, I'm going to give you, he might give them some of these or one of these, or he might just say no to all of these.
If Landfair, if she has to tell her story, okay, well, you leave out STD, but that's okay. I was sleeping with you since I was 13. What the hell is STD compared to that?
Well, you know why? It's because the charge for her, I believe, is the tape. I don't believe any herpes charges in here for her. You know what I'm saying? So they're basically, she's trying to say we need to stick to the charges and that's it. Anything else,
and don't bring in nothing new.
Yes, not and it might not be new to us because of New York, but it'd be new to the Illinois case, and she doesn't want it. Like the other thing, it's only a couple more things she wants precluded, and that would be the next thing is evidence that defendant was previously sued by accusers and or settled lawsuits brought by the accusers. So for the Illinois case, I believe Landfair received payments. If not any of the other ones, I do remember them saying they had the checks and all that. So she's saying she doesn't want any evidence that R. Kelly was previously sued by any of his accusers or that he settled lawsuits brought by those accusers. And that's a big part of his patterns. So they don't want any of that. That's a prior bad act, according to Bonjean. They also want to preclude video recordings of sexual acts that do not involve the charged conduct. So any videotapes that they might have that don't have to do with what he's charged with, just to show that he does this, that she wants this struck. She doesn't want this involved and brought to the Illinois trial, period. And then she also wants prior conviction of the defendant, his recent conviction and sentencing. She wants that to be left off the table also. She says the defendant was convicted of 1 count of RICO, Mann Act violations, inducement of offenses in the Eastern District of New York. Defendant moves to preclude the government from introducing evidence of his prior conviction. So she don't want none of this New York stuff to come up in this Illinois trial. And then she says separately, defendant joins defendant Brown's motions in limine as to arguments 2 through 5, which I hadn't seen his motion, or if I have, I forgot what it was. So I'll revisit that in another time. So these are the things she wants left off the table for the trial in Illinois. And I don't know what y'all think about it, but I think it's crazy that she's asking that no video evidence, no prior bad acts at all. Like no, the trial information that just come out, some of the stuff kind of overlaps Illinois, and she doesn't want it included at all.
She's worried. But you know, she's worried. And if you're going to get a juror in Chicago, you think that they don't know about R. Kelly already?
Oh, they know about it, but she doesn't want it brought to trial because the jury. So when they vet the jury, all this stuff is going to come up. Even if the judge doesn't, because I do agree that the judge is not going to allow for these preclusions. But I did not I highlighted that. Who is that? Oh, V. You're talking about V and her niece or nephew. Yeah, we know about it. You must be new here, Stacy. We've been through all of it. 3 years worth of all this stuff. Yeah. Hazel's asking about Star.
Yeah, I went to peep on to check on her right now while you was reading. She was knocked out.
Oh.
Hazel, hold on for a second. Miss Hazel, her leg is still messed up. She's gonna have to have surgery, but it's not gonna be until I can't be seen until August. This is the most high strong dog I've ever seen in my life. She still tries to run and everything else. The only thing she can't do is climb up the stairs. But so my husband carries her up the stairs, and then but she happy. I just checked on her. She knocked out. So thank you for asking. I was gonna say that's gonna be my new thing there. Before we end with God, is I show a quick pick a star real quick.
Okay, we'll cue that up when we bounce out. So anybody just coming in or who was, in the replay maybe and maybe confused, I don't know, but I just read some or a motion from Jennifer Bongine for our SK with things that she wants precluded from the Illinois trial. Everything she's saying that she wants precluded are things that are literally important to the trial. But I want to read the paragraph of the background of the Illinois trial because it just boom, boom, boom outlines what he's facing, what he's being charged with and what he's facing. Because I think people are confusing the New York trial, the RICO, racketeering, those things with the Illinois trial. But the Illinois trial is where the videotapes are the focus. And I'll just read the paragraph. On February 13, 2020, the government filed a 13-count superseding indictment charging defendant Kelly with number 1, 4 child pornography counts. And I believe there's a tape for each count because I know they've said there's 4 tapes. But number 2, conspiracy to obstruct justice in connection with his 2008 state court acquittal. And this is where I say, I believe everybody involved and I hope they come and are present. But everybody involved needs to come forth and talk about what happened. Even that party, that rap party they had is so highly publicized because the reporters were there and everybody was there partying and celebrating this acquittal. And this is when he had more money too, remember. Number 3, 3 counts related to receiving aforementioned child pornography. I believe that's where McDavid and Milton come in too. Number 4, 5 additional enticement counts, count 1 through 9 of the indictment largely relate to conduct directed at minor 1, while counts 10 through 13 allege sexual abuse of 4 other minors 3 through 6. Discovery reveals that numerous other women have alleged abuse by defendant over the past 30 years. Some women claim to have been abused by defendant as minors, while others claim defendant was abusive toward them when they were adults. So that's the background of the Illinois federal trial that's coming up on August 15th. And I think I'm done. Do you have anything you want to add, Ms. Della, or anybody in the chat, have any last words before we sign off?
I'm good.
I'm good. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody. Y'all hung in here tonight. A lot of information, a lot of great information. So I want to thank again my subscriber who provided the transcript. Welcome, Stacey R, to the channel. We love the engagement and appreciate your time and energy. Yulita, sorry to hear about your dog. So anybody who, obviously if you came in late, go check us out in the replay. Sometimes I move these videos into the member channel until I can build that up to be able to just so just make sure you do join the channel. It's only $1.99 a month. And as of next week, I'm going to just start uploading videos because there's a lot of information that still, needs to be distributed to y'all. And I'm going to just put those in little short uploads until Illinois, because I need to take a little break from R. Kelly. Now we do come live on Saturday night, and that's when we're going to talk about Brittany Griner. Her trial starts tomorrow. Look on my community wall if you're not clear on what her situation is. The WNBA star who is in Russia facing trial for vape cartridges filled with hash oil. They say she's facing up to 10 years, and they say she's likely going to be convicted. Her family can't be there. The U.S. embassy will be present, but they haven't really done anything at this point. So outside of that, other things, January 6th hearings, the Roe v. Wade thing, there's a lot of things we need to talk about. So that's going to be Saturday, hopefully, God willing. I saw Star chilling. I'm glad she's
Yeah,
feeling
I
better.
left her alone.
All right. All right, y'all. We out. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Say next time, bye,
everybody.
Lucy.